Hey, what we've got here is a challenge that I ran where I went 5-2, just missed the top 8. I got ninth place, so Mr. Top 9. But one of the things that I think that's really interesting about this is you get to see me learn the deck as I go through. But more importantly, I point out some of the key things that I missed that will help you realize how to play against this deck and how to play with the deck too, obviously. But I call those out in the comments below in the description so that you'll be able to see the specific parts of the video. I call them mistake 1, 2, and 3. And without those mistakes, I would have easily gotten in the top 8. Hell, I may have even won the thing. So with no further ado, check this out. All right. So we start with game 1. I keep I mull to a slightly better hand. Not really loving my opener. And then, okay. So my opponent starts with a Thoughtseize. Follows it up with a Psychic Frog. Right? I decide that my best course of action is going to be cycle Troll of Khazad Doom and reanimate it. My opponent untaps and does their own fun thing, which is put Archon of Cruelty in after a little Entomb reanimate shenanigans. So that pretty much ends the game for me there. I draw another reanimate. It's not looking good enough. My opponent's going to get to attack, and obviously he's going to kill my reanimated creature again, so that's not really going to do it for me. Also, at 9 life, that's just not cutting it. Now, game 2, I decide I'm going to play first. I look at my opener, and I'm going to keep it and go for a Thoughtseize. I Thoughtseize my opponent's Psychic Frog and decide that I'm going to not reanimate it, which was a definite mistake. I should have just reanimated it and went for it. But obviously one of the things I did was I sideboarded it into a much more creature-centric plan, which I think had been my... That became my standard way of thinking about how this matchup goes for the rest of the event. And I think it was the right choice. I just, in this particular game, I made a couple of mistakes. That was one mistake, although I think that I was able to pull this one out. So let's keep going. My opponent kills this, sure. I go for the reanimate on their Psychic Frog, which was... I guess I was trying to play around a Daze there. Alright, so coming up on this next turn, I swing in. I think I get there just off the back of having more cards than my opponent and having plenty of ways to deal with their guys. And eventually I just end up going full frog. There we go. Now, on to game 3. Now, game 3 is where the wheels begin to fall off. So we're going to look and see what I decide to go with here. Right. So, my opener, after they ponder, I think that I decided that I was going to want to Thoughtseize just to see what I could pull off here. Yeah. Thoughtseize, and I took their ponder. So from there, they play a Psychic Frog. I decide that I need to Force of Will that. And here's a major blunder. I should have reanimated their Psychic Frog in this third game and just tried to ride that out for value. But instead, I let them reanimate their own Psychic Frog. I wanted to get them with the Orcish Bowmaster, which was silly. It turns out I did reanimate their Psychic Frog. I believe they kill my Psychic Frog on their turn. Yeah, and then they reanimate their own Psychic Frog, which is unfortunate for me, but kind of is what it is. So then I pull up with... I want to maximize Bowmasters here. So, of course, my opponent rolls back with another Fatal Push, and he reanimates... They play their own Psychic Frog. I Thoughtseize them, and then I attempt to So this is the biggest problem. I thought seized my opponent, and then I attempted to get their Archon of Cruelty out of their hand, which I had seen earlier in an earlier thought season. I was like, oh, I can get them with the Archon of Cruelty, putting them to 0 cards. I'm going to win this game. And then they just exiled the Archon of Cruelty from the graveyard with the Psychic Frog, which was insanely dumb on my end. And I should have known better. But again, it was the first time really piloting this deck, and I wasn't really thinking about Psychic Frog as an answer to your own graveyard. Had I chosen something out of my graveyard, I would have been fine. However, I did not. So this ended up costing me the game. We're going to keep going here just to see what happens. But now they're drawing cards. I'm taking damage. Barrowgoyf comes into play. That's not great. Not where I want to be. I don't have enough mana to make Fatal Push work for the Barrowgoyf, which would have been the optimal play here. Instead, I have to get rid of that. And my opponent just decides to roll me over by getting back the frog. Things were terrible for me at this point, and there's nothing I could do to come out of this. Of course, I draw a card that doesn't help me. Yeah. So I play that. I'm trying to just create chump blockers so that I can maybe make it to the end game here, figure something out. But it looks like my opponent and I were both on the same plan. I actually learned a lot here from my opponent about how I should sideboard in the mirror. And it looks like I did the proper thing, which was to bring in the creatures and just make this a creature-on-creature matchup that also has access to reanimate. I assume that we both took out our animate deads. But, of course, they got me in the first round. Well played by my opponent and not so well played by myself. On to round 2. Alright, so in round 2, I keep a pretty sketch opener, but, you know, Island Ponder go, right? My opponent decides to just walk right out with a Grizzlebrand, and I have a reanimate, and what do you know? I reanimated their Grizzlebrand. Game over. So that was a nice free win. We'll always take those, of course. So we're going to go into game 2. Game 2 was a little more nuanced. I decided to mulligan. I keep this, which is not great. But I have Entomb and Animate Dead, so you can kind of make things happen. But my opponent decided, no, they were just going to turn 1, get me with Grizzlebrand. Literally turn 1, Grizzlebrand, boom, I lose the game. So, turnabout's fair play, a fast game into another fast game. All right, so round 3. Of course, I get to go first. Mulliganed. Now I've got I take his Entomb. He's just got a handful of fatties. The rest was rough for me, but I thought I was okay because I got to keep my Force Negation. My opponent decided that they didn't want to take my Force Negation, which was wild to me, because I just assumed that, I'm playing the fair deck. You want to play the unfair stuff. And then I got to reanimate my Psychic Frog. And I decided that I was just going to go in this way and see if I could win the Psychic Frog matchup here. The rough part of this was that I really wanted to be able to cast... Yeah. So now I had to figure out if I could win this race against my opponent. Once I got both Psychic Frogs out, I decided that this is the ideal situation for me, because I'm going to be able to swing in, get enough card advantage that I'm going to either be able to find an answer, or, even better, I'll just reanimate something massive like Atraxa. So once I did that, the game was pretty much over. These matches are normally very fast when you're playing Reanimator versus Froginator. So I was thankful for that, because it allowed me to chill out a little bit and kind of collect myself at 1-1. All right, going right into round 3, we've got my opponent on the Eldrazi deck. So this is going to be an interesting match, because I've never tried to even think about playing Eldrazi with the Froginator deck, and of course, I needed some kind of way to interact with my opponent here, and I figured the best way to do that would be to have lands if they're playing Wasteland.deck. So Yeah, this was one of those ones where it was like, oh, this is easy. I will quickly play Archon of Cruelty against you and win the game. That was simple, nice and easy. But as you will see, game one was a lot different than game two. All right, so game three, I decide that what we're looking at here is a little more of a slower game. I definitely didn't want my opponent casting a Chalice of the Void, so I went for the counter there. Definitely think that was worth it, especially with what I had in my hand. Follow that up with a Thoughtseize, just to get out whatever they've got, which happened to be... I decided to go for myself, get an Archon of Cruelty, just to be a wise guy, which might not have been the smartest play, but I figured, screw it, like, why not go for it? Of course, at this point in the match, in the day, I was like, I already had 1 foot out the door. I'm 1-1. Like, probably not going to take this thing down, right? My opponent has 4 mana available. Of course, there we go. And they use the Fairy Macabre to kill my my reanimation target. Now they're up. They have access to 7 mana. I am afraid. I get to my turn. They just passed. Okay, cool. I'm gonna go ahead and now I have Entomb Reanimate. I'm just hoping that I can just make this work. So now it's my opponent's turn. I just got the other Fairy Macabre out of their hand, and all I need to do is make it 1 turn. I just need to do... Of course, I drew the land, so then we put Atraxa into play. We drew 3 cards. All 3 of these cards are great. And I think from here, the game pretty much ends. Sowing Mica Spawn just isn't going to do it for my opponent. There's nothing that they can do that's really going to keep me off of my game. You know, casting some kind of giant Eldrazi could have been an issue, but then I have the consigned memory to stop a triggered ability. So if they have something like an Ulamog to kill my Atraxa, I could just stop it. And of course, from there, I won the game. All right, round 3, I believe, is another mirror match. So in this one, I took the lessons I learned from the first mirror match and sort of decided that that's what I was going to do. I obviously didn't have any idea that my opponent was on Reanimator until later in the play, but it became quite apparent to me as time went on that was what was going on. All right, so my opponent's on basics.deck right now. I'm like, oh yeah, you're doing the thing. I go ahead and try to reanimate their Troll of Khazad Doom, which seems like a fine plan. Yeah, I go for the Force of Will here. My opponent dazes. I daze. We're loving that. Oh, this was a double daze on my end. This was a daze during a fetch. Alright. So now I'm swinging in. I think I'm sitting pretty here with 2 Force of Wills. If I need them, a Reanimate, we're going to force that. It's not going to happen. They force back. I say, fine. Now all I have to do to be in this game is do 3 more damage off the top, which is not too tough. I have the Force of Will and Psychic Frog. There's nothing they can do to block, so I'm pretty solid here. There's not a lot I can think of that they could possibly do. Of course, they don't have anything, and so we go on to the next game. All right. Game 2 did not go as well for me. This is where I decided I need to mulligan, and I mulliganed a little too aggressively here. I got a playable opener, but my opponent was able to hide most of what they wanted. I think I took from here a Psychic Frog. Yeah, I took the Emperor of Bones because I wanted to be on my own Reanimator plan at this point. Unfortunately, that did not pan out for me. Drew the Force of Will too late to get rid of the Psychic Frog. I decided to go for the bounce on the Frog. They just replay it right back out. Not a lot I could do about that. But I did get a draw out of it. I think in my head here, I thought that Psychic Frog just always had flying for some reason, so I was like, haha, I'll fling this in and block. And, of course, that can't block non-flying creatures, so my opponent just gets to surf by. Nothing I can do about that. Yeah, they go for the Troll of Khazad Doom to follow up, and I'm just like, there's nothing that can be done at that point. All right, so we go on to game 3, because I didn't want to sit around and wait 2 more turns for them to just kill me. There was not a lot I could do after that next swing in was going to happen. So my opener looks okay. Let's go through the motions for this one. So I go ahead and I surveil a polluted delta after a mull to 6. Oh no, I was on the play, so this was no mull. Alright. Draw. I get rid of the land. I'm trying to play the tempo game here. Obviously, a big fan of the tempo game myself. I'm really hoping that I can use this Orcish Bowmasters against my opponent. There we go. Trying to make it happen, but of course, because it's on their turn, or sorry, it's on my turn, I can't force a negation for free, and they had a mana for the days. I'm like, absolutely, positively, I don't want that to happen. Now, this is where things get cheeky. And I play Entomb Reanimate for Atraxa. I'm at 5 cards. They're 2 cards. And the game pretty much ends from there. They're going to take their turn, of course. Oh, that's right. They bounced this. Yeah. And so then I had to play a Barrogoyf. And the Barrogoyf did a lot of work here, actually. I was extremely afraid that they were going to reanimate Atraxa. However, that did not happen. I even tried to play out my own Brazen Borrower. And they were like, absolutely not. They bounced the Barrogoyf back. Barrogoyf comes back into play. I'm still attacking for 1 every turn with this dang Orcish Orc army. I have the Fatal Push if I need it. I just decide that it's time to Fatal Push. Of course. And then I'm going to go for the Reanimate on Atraxa again, I believe. There we go. How many Reanimate on Atraxas can you survive, right? The game ends. The good guys win. The good guys playing the bad guys win. Okay, so round 5, I'm thinking maybe I can place. Maybe I can do well. Let's try that. Let's try that for once in our lives, right? So I go for an island. I'm probably going to go for a swamp after this just to be safe. Just basic swamp. Yep. Now I've got Animate Dead and Tomb in my hand. If I can just make it work. Oh no. I tried it. Yeah, that's right. I tried to entomb. That didn't pan out. Now, of course, I have access to the Ponder. I'm gonna Ponder. There's the Reanimate I want. Right? Draw the Reanimate. Let's get rid of the Troll. Oh, another Force of Will to stop my Reanimate. They hate our freedom. Alright, I'm drawing a lot of land here. Starting to get nervous about that. I'm almost to a point where I can cast Troll of Khazad Doom. Uh-oh. Here comes... Yeah, we got to get rid of that. Can't have that. Can't have that around. part of me is like, man, I think Troll of Khazad-dûm might be the card that I get to play later on. So now we've got a Daze. We're basically just playing the Daze so that we can bounce the underground sewer back to our hand. Unfortunately, Murktide playing around Daze was a real problem for me, and I ate it on this one. Wasn't going to be able to make it for a 7 attack off the dome, and then another 7 attack. So I decided that if I didn't draw anything on my next turn, the game would be over. And I draw, follow up a Necrogoyf. I go for the Daze there, just so that I can get that under city sewers into my hand. And what do we got here? A Psychic Frog, not doing it for me. They take that game. All right. I'm on the play. I decide to mulligan. I think I actually mulliganed that on accident. Brando tapped me, and I moved my cursor over just a little bit. So we're looking at opening Ponder. They go with Tamiyo. I don't have anything to deal with Tamiyo, which is fine. I probably... Yeah, so I go for the reanimate angle here, and that didn't pan out for me. I think in this particular match, I was just too jumpy, too ready to just be the tempo guy when I should have been playing smarter. And I opened the door for them to be able to just crush me. And it wasn't even close in this one, if I recall. Right, flip over. Then they're gonna get their Force of Will back eventually. It was just a no good situation for me. So I go for a... Yeah, I just let them do it, and it was like, oh god, I should have at least flashed an Orcish Bowmasters in response to that. I think they do force it. Yeah, just absolutely the worst. Alright, I follow this up. I play a Barrogoyf, which is a... Oh, no, I play the Orcish Bowmasters. And I think then I followed up with a Barrogoyf. There we go. So I'm looking at like kind of a dominating presence on the board right now, but I don't really understand at this point the power that the Barrogoyf really has, and I just wasn't playing it smart. So of course my opponent follows up and murders my... So there's a long period of me not understanding the power of Barrogoyf. So this is a great spot for everyone to learn. Like, Barrogoyf would have been fine in this position. I should have attacked in to kill my opponent's Murktide Regent. That would have been fine in the next turn. But instead, we just sit there and stalemate for turn after turn after turn. It would have been very smart of me to just go and say, okay, let's simplify this board. I attempt to reanimate Orcish Bowmasters when I should have been reanimating the Barrogoyf. Absolutely bonehead play on my end here. I wasn't thinking about Death Touch. I wasn't thinking about the fact that Barrogoyf gets guys back. I was just like, this is a 4/5 lifelinker that makes my graveyard bigger. So important, you know, when you're playing with a new deck, read all the cards, right? Sideboard card I just wasn't paying attention to. This goes on for way too long. This is actually some of the most upsetting Magic that I end up playing on the day. So just keep watching as I continue to pass turn when I should not have done that. Of course, now I'm looking at the Psychic Frog and thinking maybe I should get rid of that with the Fatal Push, but that's not going to change anything. All in all, just absolutely like a masterclass in how to screw everything up. Yeah, then they Force of Will my follow-up Orcish Bowmaster to their Orcish Bowmaster. Now their board's getting bigger. And he still doesn't want to attack in, which is wild to me. Attacks in with the... Yeah, that's fine. I decide to Fatal Push that. I'm starting to take out lands, but that's all I'm drawing. And I should have been attacking in. Right here, I should have been attacking in a long time ago. And having reanimation targets for my Barrogoyf, like, come on. It would have been a no-brainer. I'd have been abyssing my opponent every turn with 2 Barrogoyfs in play. This was a wild misplay on my end, and I could. This is probably the reason why I didn't top 8 this match, was because of the way that I handled this creature stalemate here. Don't make this mistake. I made this mistake. You'll know better in the future. A go for the throat into my Barrogoyf, which just insult to injury, and then the game's over from here. There's nothing I can do. Untap, attack, and I'm dead. Longer than it should have been, right? Ooh, gross. All right. Looks like I won the die roll again. I think I won like 5 die rolls on this event. I kept a pretty sketch opener that would have definitely lost to a Wasteland. But, you know, 2 Force of Wills with the ability to cast them, Entomb and, Entomb and Fatal Push. Then I draw the Reanimate. I tried to reanimate my creature's guy. Didn't work. They stopped me. I wanted 2 Psychic Frogs, that's all. All right. Oh, that's right. I milled the Psychic Frog with the, I see. I milled the Psychic Frog with the under City Sewer and then reanimated it. My opponent let it happen. And then I got into a weird spot where I was like, But I still have a Force of Will in my hand. I've got a blue card in my hand. I decided that I'm just going to play it cool and not lose to my opponent killing my guy. I'm just going to continue getting a little bit of value, drawing cards. Now my opponent plays it. Sorry, I play it. They daze. I let it go. I'd rather keep this Force of Will in my hand, let them search for what they need, but now if I Force of Will that, we're doing a little bit better. Alright, so I'm in an okay spot here because at least with Troll, I could get that other land if I need to. I think at this point, I decided to start putting counters on him. He needs to get bigger. Now we're just value attacking. Honestly, I probably should have just discarded both of those things to... of course, now I see the play that the other opponent made against me. I get rid of my own creature that they were trying to reanimate. So, lesson learned there and played effectively. I draw a card. It's an Underground Sea. I play the Wasteland. Now I'm just trying to make sure that my opponent doesn't get a chance to outcard me. Simple as that. Alright. I go for the Ponder. Thoughtseize, Daze. I take the Daze. Attack. I think I get rid of... Yeah. We just get rid of the Thoughtseize here because we know it's not going to do anything for us. And that's the game. Alright, that was game 1. Alright, game 2. I look at my opener and I'm like, yes! Right? Especially if I can get an Emperor of the Bones onto the battlefield. I could have pondered here. I decided not to ponder. I wanted to save a Brainstorm just in case they follow up with some sort of Thoughtseize or something like that. Dolthy Voidwalker, not loving that. I go for the counter. They go for the counter. I go for the Brainstorm into the Force of Will, but I didn't get another blue card, so it is kind of what it is. I have a Fatal Push, so it's not the end of the world. And they have 2 cards in their hand, so I decided to Fatal Push that dude, and then I try and reanimate it. Because, like, why not? Why not be that guy? I'm 100% that guy. My opponent comes in with a Ponder, looking for answers. I think they have an answer, too. I think that they answered with a Fatal Push eventually. But for the time being, I'm just going to crack in. I play an Emperor of Bones. My opponent Fatal Pushes. There it is. That's the Fatal Push. Alright. So now we're in this 2-card stalemate again, but I have a creature, and they don't. Alright, so I play Psychic Frog. Now we're doing great because all I have to do is keep them out of the game. Orcish Bowmasters, fine. They attack, you know, they do the classic combat trick, which I should have known better than to play into, but you know, what are you gonna do? Still I have Psychic Frog, so we're gonna fly that frog. Oh, I get rid of that guy, yeah. Play that. Ooh, like that. I think we threw that into the... Yeah, we put that into the graveyard. Yeah, we're just going to bounce. We're not... No. You're not going to kill my Psychic Frog by blocking it. That's not going to happen. Of course, then I draw a card, so I have to discard a card to keep it in play. Unfortunately, it's 2 Force of Wills. But you got to keep... Yeah, Psychic Frog's worth keeping in play. Get into a really awkward spot here where they're reanimating stuff. I'm in trouble because I can't really attack into it now because of the Psychic Frog. Things get kind of awkward here for a moment because no brainstorm. I don't want to be brainstorming into a you know, like a 6/6 for free. And then they get their Psychic Frog out. I force it at the very least. Woo. But they're doing damage. And there's not a lot I can do to stop the pounding. So, Barrogoyf just absolutely ends this discussion. Makes everything good for me. Of course, I would have loved to have had a pair of Orcish Bowmasters at this point. So then I decide that I'm just going to swing in. Right? They block with just one guy, which is wild to me. I assumed just block everything to kill that thing, but they didn't just do that, so... Okay. Tap. Yeah, things are coming up amazing for me now. And now all I have to do is just attack every turn with the Barrogoyf. I basically have an Abyss online. Mill 4 cards, of course. And I didn't think to take the... Again, here's another amazing play. Take this creature. I did. Apparently I did. Thinking one of my other rounds, I didn't end up remembering to take the creature. So, we go in. Just keep attacking. My opponent's got a block. He's losing resources every turn. I'm going to play another Psychic Frog. Now I've got the win on board. Right? I've got 2, 3... 1, 2, 3 cards in hand. 4. 3 plus 3 is 6. I can deal 6 of them, and they'll be dead as soon as they take the damage. Alright, so on to round 7. Round 7 was extremely decisive for me. It was going to determine whether or not I could take this down. I'm playing lands, a deck that I am not aware that of how to play against properly. So, of course, I go for Sylvan Library off of a PUTZ. They follow up with Crop Rotation. Not loving that. They go for a Wasteland, waste my land. Okay. Luckily, I have 2 lands in my hand that can be used to get any kind of land I want. I'm just going to Ponder for Brainstorm. My opponent has out Tabernacle, has out Savannah. I'm kind of hoping that I can figure out a way. Yeah, perfect. So that's a 2-for-1 for me. I'll take it. Crop Rotation gets rid of that Tabernacle too, which was not something I wanted to see in play. I just do my all-time best to convert Tamiyo into anything other than a creature, so that I didn't have to pay for Tabernacle after they come back with a Life from the Loam. All I'm worried about right now is like Life from the Loam, right? So they stopped Tamiyo with the Pithing Needle. I decide it's time to play Psychic Frog. And Psychic Frog does a ton of work for the rest of the game. Or it doesn't. This is a long one. I recall this being a long game, actually. So my opponent, for a little while, I waste my opponent out of the game. And things are looking pretty amazing. So I decide that it's time to just start cracking in. Slow but sure. And of course I have 3 Entombs in my hand. Ooh. Alright. So I bounced the Mox Diamond back to his hand before. Played the Brazen Borrower. Now things are looking bad. Being able to get back. Alright. Being able to get back the Tabernacle is a worry to me, not to mention being able to waste me out of the game. Luckily, they didn't have any Ghost Quarters, so I just played Psychic Frog. And now I have the option of figuring out how I want to deal with... honestly, I think that at this point here, my opponent could have been on the go get... You know, assuming they have Shadow Sphere, they could have been on the go get constructs part of the game and really overwhelm me with constructs. But I just decided to just pay 2 mana and keep attacking. I decided to pump up my Frog just to eliminate the turns a little bit further. And I think if we go to the next turn, I untap and can kill them. And they didn't have anything that they could do about it. So that was a best case scenario for me. Life from the Loam, get some more stuff, but it's not enough. Untap and pay the mana. And attack in. Right. Draw. And then I'm just going to attack and do all the damage to them. Right? If they had, like, no one's letting me draw a card, right? If they have it, they would have popped it. Right? Like I said, round 7 was the deciding one for me. I'm 4-2 right now. There will be a couple of 5-2s in the finals, and what we can see is my opponent has the hate. Right? I went full on fair creature deck from here. Of course, I kept in Attraction just in case, you know. But my thought was all I need to do is play a fair game against a deck that also plays fair, which isn't exactly where I want to be, but maybe... And Surgical on the Ponder. Ironically, I took 1 Ponder out of my deck and threw it in the sideboard, so they only got 3 Ponders, which is still not great for me. I didn't want that to happen because they got 1 from my hand. But here we go. We've got... I forced this. We've got Psychic Frog. Psychic Frog's always worth protecting, just because you're gonna get the extra card from it if you get to attack with it. So you're not even really losing anything there. I play a second Psychic Frog. My opponent is not having that, and I think from here we just kind of go as far as we can off the Psychic Frog. Now, the Knight of Reliquary is a problem. I bounce it, swing in. I don't have a way to stop it from entering the battlefield again, but now that I have Barrogoyf, I'm pretty hyped about that. And I have the option of being able to get rid of anything that they cast off of. Yeah, I decided to let one of them go because I'm really worried mostly about Life from the Loam. What kind of shenanigans can they pull with Life from the Loam? Go ahead and pitch a card. All right. Now, what I don't want to do is get rid of the flagstones. Now, I think my opponent, yeah, comes in with a Maze of Ith, and that would have been rude as hell if I didn't have an answer to it. So I make my Frog flying, and I attack with my Barrogoyf and my Frog. This is where I did not think in my head, hey, put a creature back in your hand, you dummy. I should have put the Troll back in my hand. And it almost cost me the game. Because remember, I have this Brazen Borrower up on the top that I haven't cast for a while, and I bounced it. And I think my opponent may have actually forgotten about the Brazen Borrower, just sitting there representing 3 damage eventually, right? So now we go, and my opponent decides that they're going to stop me for a turn or 2. I attack in, right? Opponent uses the flagstones, which are here. And I'm thinking to myself, oh no. I might be able to get there. And my opponent is able to give his knight protection, block my Barrowgoyf to kill my Barrowgoyf, and they're down to 4. And so I don't have enough mana to play Brazen Borrow at the end of turn, which I would have done had I had enough mana. But I decide that all right, I guess it's time to keep doing the thing and attacking. But they've got a pretty solid plan here. Now, I decide it's time to attack in again. And now, where I could have animated my Barrowgoyf, I don't think that that's where I really wanted to be. So I decided that instead, now they phase out my Frog, which is a bummer. But I think I have them on the ropes, and I can't think of anything that they can do to stop me from winning the game. And lo and behold, I was worried about a Shadow Spear in attack. Nope, they went with Pithing Needle, and they named Frog. So I can't make my Frog fly anymore. I can't pump my Frog anymore. I decide I'll untap, play the Brazen Borrower, and swing in for 3. Do you have anything? And the answer is they didn't. They didn't have anything. That was the game. So I made it to 9th place off of this deck. And as you can see, not a lot of thinking involved for me, which is what I like. I love a tempo deck. I did well in the mirrors. I think that having a pivot plan in your sideboard really helps this deck. And yeah, look, try this deck. It's amazing. You know, the fact that I can pull this off, having only first picked up this deck this one time, tells you the power level of this deck. So very likely I'll be taking this to Eternal Weekend, because it is it's one of those decks that, like, it's fast, it's effective, and every win felt either free or like I at least had outs. Thanks for watching, everybody. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to this channel and do your part to help sustain the legacy content ecosystem. Just subscribing to this channel goes a long way to reminding YouTube that people love and support this format. Now, if you really want to go the extra mile, you should think about supporting us through Patreon. Both the links for subscription and Patreon are right here. And if you're listening on an audio format, you can go to patreon.com/eternaldurdles. Thanks so much for watching.